Good to see you. It feels like we should be doing this interview with a 40 ounce of Bud Light or something. It doesn't feel right. There's no beer in this cup.
It's already happy hour somewhere.
Well, you're an avid.
It's always happy hour somewhere.
Do you still drink beer every day? I read some interview that you're an avid beer drinker.
I do.
Yeah. It's well, I guess it goes. I mean, is it Bud?
It makes my job.
Yeah.
And also what I like doing, so I drink beer.
But you view it as you view beer as a social occasion, right? I mean, it's much more than something you pour in a cup.
So beer from all beverages, if you think like how people associate beer with, is always social occasions, sports, and relaxed occasions. So in a way, it cuts across most of the activities that we do during the week. Mm-hmm. Of course, when I say that I drink beer every day, it's not literally every day, but it's most of the days. And is the beverage that I like the most. It can be sometimes non-alcohol beer, sometimes it's low alcohol beer, sometimes it's normal strength beer. But it's very refreshing, delicious.
When I visited you at your headquarters, or one of them in the city, I walk in and there's this bar. I'm like, this is great. I'm like, every office needs one of these. I mean, but talk to us about, while you're in the business of beer, under your watch, you have now made a recent push into no alcohol beer. Like, what's the play there?
So I think that it goes back to what I said before, is social beverage is very flexible. When I mean flexible, you can have great non-alcoholic liquids. The non-alcohol beer is part of our portfolio forever in many, many countries. But if you go back like 3 years in time, let's say 4 years in time, there were a couple of very interesting breakthroughs in terms of technology. And today we have a technology that we developed that's basically distillation under low temperatures because of the pressure that makes the liquids just great liquids, very similar to the standard format of beer. And you see people getting to drink non-alcoholic beer in occasions where beer would serve them very well, but in before they were constrained by driving or being weekdays or being lunches after and before going back to work. And now because you have non-alcohol available, people are just like choosing beer.
How hard is it to make a beer with no alcohol in it?
It's not that hard. Of course, there is different levels of technology, as I said before. For many, many years, the technology was, in a very simple way, was stopping the fermentation. So you would have a beer that was not a final beer. Today, with this technology, you brew your beer to the end, and then you just remove the alcohol, but you leave everything else. The aroma, the taste, all the components are preserved by this quick distillation at low temperature. And then the liquids today are much superior to what they were before. One of the most interesting things that I saw this year was we sponsored the Olympics, and then we had non-alcohol beer in the Olympic Villa. And people are just crazy because it was such a way for you to hang out with friends, it was summer, drinking a refreshed liquid, very low calories. There are electrolytes in beer.
There's electrolytes in this beer or all beers?
In all beers.
Well, I don't know.
So it's very good for replenishing. If you look in Germany, it's very common for cyclists to replenish, while here maybe people will drink isotonic. There people will drink a combination of a soda with beer to replenish electrolytes.
Your company has been built through a series of acquisitions over many years. Of course, the most notorious, Budweiser. What does the U.S. footprint look like for your business today? What does it look like, in St. Louis, in that namesake market of Bud?
Yeah, so over the years, our company historically grew through acquisitions, and beer consolidated somehow through acquisitions as many other sectors. Sometimes we like to remember beer, but if you look at many other sectors, they are consolidated in 2, 3, 4 companies. And we came to the US in 2008, headquarters is St. Louis. The US today represents close to 30% of our revenues. 70% of our revenues are in other 49 countries that we operate, and we basically operate across the globe in all continents.
Do you still want to grow via big acquisition?
So in the last 3 years, we reoriented our strategy from acquisitions to a more organic growth strategy. And this, again, because we are in 50 countries, 1 in 4 beers globally are one of our brands in one of our countries. So there is much more for us to grow on the current footprint that we have, which we think that's pretty close to the ideal footprint for us. But of course, we are always, as we work and deploy capital, our number one priority is organic growth. But dynamically, you're going to always find opportunities in returning more cash to shareholders or investing if you have a good opportunity with a good ROI in bolt-on acquisitions in the category, around the category, but this is no longer our number one priority.
Explain to, I think you do have a popular ticker on Yahoo Finance, you have a lot of followers on our platform. Why do you think the stock hasn't reacted accordingly? So I went through your most recent quarter, operating profits up, new $2 billion buyback. Like, what is holding investors back? What do they need to see from your company before they hit that buy button?
It's a great question for you to answer.
Well, not me. I'm not an analyst anymore. I'm like, make the case. What's the pitch?
So let me tell you. I think that we always think that in the long term, of course, the share price is a very good test to the results that you deliver. But when you get a shorter horizon on this, there is always 2 things. There is the macro, and you don't have control on macro. And there are the things that you focus on, you manage, and you control. So I will talk more about the things that we control and the focus that we have on what we manage and we can do. You just said we released the third quarter a couple of weeks ago. And if you get the results in a nutshell, revenues are growing 3.6%, EBITDA growing 7.6%. EPS is growing double digits, 18%, nominal US dollars EPS. We increased our dividends last year, paid this year, in the last 2 years by 64%. We are generating very good cash flow. We release cash flow twice a year. So I'm talking more about the half year. We grew cash flow more than $1 billion. And with that, we announced a $2 billion buyback this quarter. So we're managing the business, focusing on what we control, which is our own performance, investing on our brands to the long term. Results are coming, and we tend to believe that share price will follow. Now, if you step 1 second and you look at the macro, I think that there are 2 things in the macro that are very relevant. One is that 70% of our revenues are in non-dollar denominated currencies, and this year is being a year of appreciation in the dollar. So this brings more difficulties for non-US based organizations and companies. And everybody that's over-indexed in the US is having a better result in terms of share price. And the second thing is a little bit of concentration in some tech bets, in some pharma bets that are living a little bit in the cycle, consumer goods lagging these sectors. But we think that, again, short term, focus on what we control. Long term, share price should reflect that. If you look, what is the pitch? Look at our cash flow generation.
Yeah, so that's well done.
And see what we are doing in terms of return to shareholders, and you have a big case there.
One thing not in your control is weight loss drugs. I mean, how longer term, how does this impact the demand for beer and even spirits, for the matter? But of course, beer.
Say again?
In spirits, how does the push to lose weight via these drugs impact your industry?
So today, there is no any impact that you can read through the numbers. There is a lot of research out there. There is a lot of data out there, and there is some speculation. Again, if you look at the numbers, you don't see any strong correlation. If you look at the research and you look at the profile of these users and how they interact with beverages, it's fair to say that beer is a little bit separated, while it's still part of the consumption, but because we are not in the sweet part of the industry. So wine is sweeter, higher calories. Cocktails has a lot of sweet components, higher calories. I think that beer gets a little bit aside of that. And we have products, if you look over the years, Michelob Ultra is a product in the US that is growing a lot, is low carbs, low calories.
Don't you have a zero alcohol version of that?
We announced it, we are launching for next year. So now we're gonna have the regular version, low carbs, low calories, and you have the non-alcohol version that's very low calories as well. So in a way, beer fits well for this type of occasions, and the low carb, low alcohol, low calorie products that we have make a good case for you to continue to have social activities while maintaining your diet. We advocate at the end of the day for a balanced lifestyle. As I said, I drink beer every day, and I'm still doing well on the
You're doing
scale.
okay, very fit. You're very fit. I talked to recently the CEO of Suntory, spirits maker, and we were talking a lot about this next generation, let's say under the age of 25, not drinking as much. What type of risk does that present to your business?
So there is an interesting report that I always recommend people to read. Bernstein did a very comprehensive report on that, and I like to recommend because it is independent source. And at the end of the day, there are a couple of conclusions there. One of the conclusions is, while in the US, legal drinking age is 21. So when I talk legal drinking age in the US, it's 21. 21 years old to 24 years old are drinking less and participating less in alcoholic occasions. Even if this behavior would be projected throughout the years, the impact on the alcohol industry is around 1% of the current volumes. But the reality is that the same study shows that people are doing many activities, including socializing, drinking, older. So they live longer with the parents, they engage in working activities older, they have social activities older, and as they go 24 to 27, most of the behaviors tend to normalize, right? So I think that people are more conscious on their choices. A lot of these young generations are sticking at home and in some of their activities longer. And as they start then to go to more normal lifestyle, they tend to normalize behavior. The third conclusion is that on the other end of that, people are living longer, retiring with more wealth, and socializing much more frequently, especially with premium products, than they were before. So that's why there is a balance on the industry. And while people talk about the behavior of young consumers, you don't see these results translating in the speed, dollars, and volume of the categories.
I think you've laid out a case. You're a very global company. We have an administration that just is about to enter that may make it tougher for a global company to operate. Tariffs on China, potential tariffs on Europe, maybe more steel tariffs, whatever the case. Or how concerned are you as a CEO of your company that your business is going to be really hurt by more geopolitical tensions?
Yeah, so I think there are two pieces there on this question. One, while being global this year, we followed elections in basically half of the world, from Belgium to India to the US. And one take of that, which I think is very positive, that sometimes people forget, is that was a very straightforward process, with the elections being held everywhere, results coming, and people now taking on the next stages of the government. And For us, one thing that for beer is very interesting that a lot of people sometimes do not know or do not remember if they have seen before is that beer is local. We say that beer never travels much more than 300 kilometers. If you look like the majority of the volume that we sell is brewed locally and distributed in a 300 kilometers ratio from the brewery. Think about the US, for example, 99% of what we sell in the US, we produce right here in the US. And over 95% of the ingredients that we use, we procure from local companies and local farmers. So for our business in the US, tariffs might impact one another component that we buy from outside, while 95% is local produced. And this is true for all other countries that we operate, with the exception of some countries where we have just exports. So as long as the playing field is leveled, and this is good for economic activities in the US, beer is grown in the US, produced in the US, marketed in the US, and consumed in the US. So very local business.
Look, we have to ask this stuff. I mean, your namesake brand, your Bud Light, became caught in the political sphere about a year ago. Sales really came under a lot of pressure. Two-part question. What was it like for you as a CEO to see sales of this iconic American brand fall to the extent that they did? And can you sit on here and say today, this controversy is over, Bud Light's coming back, and it will go back to where it was pre-controversy?
So that was a very tough period for the team in the US. I think that you followed a little bit of the controversy, and we had a little bit of everything, from people being threatened on the streets, a lot of things being told about the company, and at the end of the day, slowly, as things settle and the communication continues to flow, people really understand who we are, right? And who we are in the United States is a company that is here for over 100 years, based in the US, employing American people, sourcing most of the ingredients from American farmers and American companies, distributed in the US for over 500 wholesalers that are in each and every city, that supports military, veterans. We have thousands of them working for us in our breweries and in our wholesalers, 20,000 employees that we employ direct in the US, over 50,000 if we include our wholesalers. And today the business is stable, is growing as a matter of fact in the last few weeks. We have a portfolio of brands, and while Bud Light is not growing and was not growing before the controversy, Michelob Ultra, Busch Light are amongst the top 3 brands in growth in the US. And we continue to invest, as we always did for the long term, on our brands, in mega platforms that all consumers love, and supporting the local communities on where we operate, because at the end of the day, this is who we are.
President-elect Trump said, you should be given another shot, Bud Light. I mean, does that endorsement, does that matter to a company like yours?
I think that many people, once all of that settled, came to, again, recognize and remember and be remembered of who we are as a company. And someone one day told me that no one wants their best friend to be judged in a bad day. And I think this is true for Bud Light. This is true for any brand that was caught or any person on this controversy. And if I look from how hard the team in the US is working, how much they are doing for the local communities, for this brand, and for the local economies, of course, it deserves another shot. It's a great brand. It's a great liquid.
I don't know if we have any of it out there in the bar, but I mean, if we do, by all means, bring it out. Michel, good to see you.
Should have.
Thank you for doing this. We appreciate it. We'll let you have your beer now. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.